Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. So we were almost in the last few paragraphs of the 7th chapter which we were studying. It was Master's conversation with Ramakrishna. Actually, after his conversation with the Ramakrishna, he had with the conversation with Vijay Goswami, then he had the conversation with Ramakrishna, and then with the Marwari devotees. And we were almost in the concluding section of Sri Ramakrishna's conversation with the Marwari devotees. So what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, after enunciating the path of bhakti, now he is enunciating in short the path of jnana. What he's saying, one ultimately discovers God by trying to know who this I is. Is this I the flesh, the bones, the blood, or the marrow? Is it the mind or the buddhi? Analyzing this, you realize at last that you are none of this. This is called the process of neti neti. Not this, not this. One can neither comprehend nor touch the Atman. It is without qualities or attributes. So, that's the process of vichara, which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. That from our very inception of birth till our death, the idea that the I, it's always there. We never try to find out what that I is. We take it for granted that I am existing, I exist. But what that I is, we will find that the idea of I, that never changes. That the same I who was a small child is going through all the changes, is the same I who is a middle-aged person who was young, and at last he will be old, and then at last it is the same I. It is going to the process of decay, old age, death. So the question is, there the idea of I we find is unchanging. But somehow, mistakenly, the I which I know is unchanging. Whether I am in the 3 states of my existence, waking, dream state, or deep state, or the 6 phases, 6 changes through which I am going, jayate, asti, vardhate, viparinamate, apakshayate, nasti. Everywhere I will find the sense of I is always the same. I never feel the I is changing. But when I identify myself with the body, is the body something which is unchanging? No. So this I which I am identifying with the body is a misconception. It cannot be, because the idea of I find is not changing. It is always same. But the body I find is going through constant state of change. Not only that, the idea of I we find doesn't in any way diminish. Like if I was really the body, if somehow for some reason someone has been amputated, his hand has been amputated or his leg has been amputated, does he or she feel that he is just 80% I or the 70% I, that some portion of his I has gone? No. He still feels he is exactly the same I as he was before the amputation. So that shows that our idea, it's very common sense, it doesn't need any sadhana. Just by vichara we can find that the idea of I which I have, that idea of I, which is always unchanging, can never be the body, because body is going through the changes. Similarly, it cannot be the prana, because prana, sometimes I feel very much energetic, sometimes I'm weak, sometimes healthy, sometimes I'm sick. So that speaks of the variation of the prana. How can I be one with the prana? So that again comes the question that I cannot be that one with prana. Can I be the mind? Again, the same thing. The mind is going through various types of phases. Sometimes I am abjected to misery, sometimes I'm happy, elated. The mood changes, the mind goes on changing various thoughts. It is jumping from thought to thought. So it again cannot be the I, because the I, which is unchanging, cannot be the mind. Similarly, it cannot be the buddhi, the determination faculty, because that also constantly is going on through a lot of changes. It can neither be the Anandamaya kosha, because we never find that we are in that state of Anandamaya kosha always. It changes. When I am in deep sleep, most probably I was identified with the Anandamaya kosha. When after a long assiduous pursuit, I get a bit of joy, elation, when my desire is fulfilled, that also speaks of your identification with the Anandamaya kosha. Why? Here all our desires has fallen off. The mind is now free for some time. So then you are getting identified with that Anandamaya, when the mind is still, just like in the deep sleep state. So for the time being, you enjoy that bliss. So that's the identification with the Anandamaya kosha. But does it remain constant? No, we find it changes, going on changing constantly. So all this, our attachment with these 5 states of our existence, which has been indicated in the Vedanta as the Pancha Kosha. Everywhere we find the drawing, that first is the Annamaya Kosha, as if one after other the layers are there. And then comes the inner one is this Pranamaya, and still inner is the Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and at last is the Anandamaya. It's actually not like that. Just for our easy comprehension, we draw that way. The idea is at 5 different levels, we get identified with the idea that I am the body, I am the vital forces, I am the mind, I am the intellect, I am the blissful Chit. So here Sri Ramakrishna is saying that I am neither of this all, neither the body, nor the mind, nor the senses, nor the vitality, nor the tranquility which I experience now and then when I go through this, what you say, this either in deep sleep or when I have gained some, attained some desire and I am in a state of bliss for the time being. I am neither of those sheaths. Then who am I? So for that again he is saying one can neither comprehend nor touch the Atman. It is without qualities and attributes. So now here comes the question. If there is something called Atman, and again that is not comprehensible, as it is beyond attributes, then again the question as is thought of in Buddhism comes. Is there something really called Atman? Or is it all these sheaths are only the thing which gives a sense of Atman? As in Buddhism they say that there is no Atman. But in Buddhism they say it is not something which Buddha said. Very interesting. Buddha never said there is no Atman. The Buddha almost said the same thing as in Vedanta. There is no Atman, there is no self in the body. There is no self in the mental formations. There is no self in the feelings. So that's why he is just negating. So if you take just a phrase and think it to be a sentence, then the entire idea changes. With the very second lecture of Buddha, when he came back from enlightenment, the first was the 4 Aryat Satya, the 4 noble truths, that there is dukkha and there is a cause of dukkha, that is tanha, the desire to cling to the sense objects. There is a cause. And the third is there is a way out. It's not that we always have to be in that suffering. There is a way out. And naturally the question comes, what's the way out? So that's the fourth Satya, that I have propounded this eightfold path through which you can reach that state where you are beyond misery. So that was the first lecture. And the second, his discourse was the discourse on Anatman. So that's why everyone will say that Buddha's very second lecture was on the concept of Anatman. But if you go through that lecture, you will never find Buddha is saying there is no self. There is no self in the body. There is no self in the feelings. So like that but he's never saying there is no self. So now that's what happens. What happens now when I don't take the entire idea, just to take a part of it, then you can never find the truth in its entirety. The truth gets distorted. As Sri Ramakrishna's that story, that's a very interesting story, that the two friends met after a long time, and they were both, there's the Tati, those who will be just preparing cloths. So they are all cloth merchants. So they have to do with this sewing, and their business was sewing and preparing clothes. So now one of the friend met the other after a long time. So the guest was very happy, and the host too was very happy. He invited the guest. Both were having a nice conversation, and then the host told, after a long time we have met, please just sit for some time. Let me go to my inner apartments and bring some refreshments for you. So she went inside to bring some refreshments, and now this guest, she found there were a lot of these thread balls. As she was working with all those threads of various colors, those thread balls were there. And now the guest got lured by one of those thread balls. That color was wonderful. She never found it in the market, and she was so lured, she simply picked it up, and where to hide it? She hid it under the armpit. And she was sitting quietly. And when the host came with the refreshment, and when the guest was having his refreshment, the host realized that one of those cotton balls thread is missing. And then she was surprised, how can it be missing? And then she looked around, and at last looked at her friend, and the way she was sitting, she realized that it is she who has hidden, and where she has hidden, that also she have realized. It was under the armpit. Now how to get it back? She also wanted that. So now, when the refreshment was over, now the host just proposed a wonderful thing. He told, after such a long time we met, I am so elated. We feel like dancing. Come, let's dance together. Now, the guest was, of course, denying. She was not agreeing. But the host went on insisting. So at last there was no way. So she agreed, and both now started dancing. The host was dancing freely with both the arms upraised. And the guest, with one arm pressed, with other arm raised, she was dancing. It's a very peculiar, queer way of dancing. And now the host asked, is it a way to dance? Just see how freely I am dancing. And then the guest replied, I cannot dance that way. I don't know. See, I just can dance this way only. And she continued to dance in a peculiar way with the one arm pressed and with the other arm raised up. So what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that if you get biased by some ideas, then you will be just keeping something in your armpit. So in the Buddhism, that's the thing has happened. So that there is no self in the body. So all those, the second phase, that they have kept under the armpit, and they are just saying there is no self. And then for that, there is not a lot of arguments also. What's the argument? Very nice argument. It's very difficult to deny what they're saying. Very difficult. They're saying that it is called alata prakaran. That if you go on moving a torch in circle, go on fastly moving a torch in a circle, then you won't see the torch. You will see as if a ring of fire. you're moving a torch very fast, you see a ring of fire. So in Buddhism, as they are now convinced there is no self, they say there is no self. Everything is moving, everything is a flow. In that flow, just like that ring, something appears to be as if permanent. And that is your idea of self. There is no self, everything is moving. Just the way you see that ring which is not there, because of the movement of the torch, at last you see a ring, but the ring is not there. So similarly, self is not there. It is just everything which is flowing, which behind that flow, something permanent, you get a feeling. But it's, after all, there is nothing called self. Very strong argument. But Swami Vivekananda in one sentence is denying that entire argument. What he is saying is very interesting. Yes, it is fact. It is a fact that I do see the ring which is not there. So someone is getting deluded by the ring. The one who is getting deluded, he is the subject. So here also the same thing. The idea of I which I have is a false idea of I. It is because of all the motions. But someone is being deluded. Without the subject, you cannot just simply rely that you can just define an object. There must be some subject who is witnessing it. The one who is deluded, he is the one who is who is the witnessing of all these things. And at last, by negation, when you go there, the subject can never be known. If you know the subject, then that becomes an object. So that will lead to infinite regression. In logic, they say it is a faulty way of logic. Because there is a fault, it will lead to infinite regression. That's self which I found. Behind that, there must be some other self who is seeing that. Because the moment you see that, it becomes an object. So the ultimate self cannot be known. But the fact that I know something, that shows that there must be a self behind that. In Vedanta, very nicely they call it is called something like tatastha lakshana. Tatastha. The self can never be known. But as I am seeing the flow in the form of body, in the form of the mind, in the form of intellect, in the form of the vitality, as I'm seeing this flow, so there must be someone who is witnessing. And that is called tatastha lakshana. These ideas are very wonderful. Just the way I cannot know gravitation unless there an object is falling. Can gravitation be known by itself? No. By seeing a falling object, I know there must be something called gravitation. As such, gravitation cannot be known. I cannot see light unless an object is illumined. Can light be seen? No. When it illumines something, then I get inferred that there must be something called light. Unless the iron filings are being attracted by an iron bar, I can never know that it's a magnet. So magnetism itself is never seen. By its effect, I know that yes, some iron filings are being attracted in a particular way. Similarly, the entire world is illumined. Some witness must be there. That witness can never be known. If I know that, it becomes an object. But that witness, the one who is observing, is the one which is the self, and that is known by tatastha. Tatastha means something in the bank. From your house, most probably there is a river flowing very near to your house. But it's not visible. It's very near, but it's not visible. And some guest comes to your house and you say that there is a river very near to our house. He says, where? I cannot see. And then you point out a tree, a tall tree, which is just on the bank of the river. And you point out to the tree and say, you see the tree? Yes. The river is just flowing by that side. So by that river, that tata, the one which is in the tata is on the bank, the tree. So just as everything is illumined, behind there someone must be there who is witnessing that. It's wonderful, this argument, the Vedanta they are speaking of. And that speaks of the self. In Panchadashi, very nicely it has been spoken of. There's a story of the 10 persons crossing a river. It's a very interesting story. That the 10 simple persons, they crossed the river, and after crossing, they were going for a pilgrimage. And the river was shallow, but the stream was quite strong. The current was very strong. So to be sure that all have crossed the river, so they, after crossing the river, they planned, let's count whether all of us are here or not. So They all stood in a line, and one of them just went in front of them and started counting. He found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where is the 10th one? So they were wondering, who is? So one person is missing. Who is the one who is missing? They found that as such, no one is missing. But when we count, one is missing. So some other person told, most probably you haven't counted properly. Let me count. So one by one, they all take the position of the one who is counting, and all others stands in a queue, and everyone finds it's 9. And some passerby was passing. He saw the entire thing. He was very much amused. And he came and told, I will solve the problem for you. So what's that? Who is the missing? Well, no one is missing. It's all are there. You all stand in line. I will count. So now he counted. It is 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this person then asked that how come when you are counting we are 10, when we are counting it is 9? And then he again called one of them. Count. It's 9. And then this person turned the finger toward that person himself, who was counting, and say, you are the 10th. When the one who is counting, he is the 10th. So similarly here, the one who is saying that I am not the body, not the mind, not the senses, he is the one who is the self. So though it may appear, because as it is the eternal subject, I can never know it as an object, I can never objectify it. But through this Tatastha Lakshana, at last I can find out that it is the self, which has been spoken of. So now, this is the idea, in very short, Sri Ramakrishna is describing. That one ultimately discovers God by trying to know who this I is. Is this I the flesh, the bones, the blood, or the marrow? Is it the mind or the buddhi? Analyzing this, you realize at last that you are none of this. Then who am I? This is called the process of neti neti. Not this, not this. One can neither comprehend nor touch the Atman. It is without qualities and attributes. As long as the reflection is there, I can know that there must be something which is reflected. If reflection is not there, I can never know what is being reflected, whether reality is there or not. It is avang manasagocharam. In some other context, Sri Ramakrishna gives a very nice example. To Girish Ghosh, he just was explaining. He says that suppose there are 10 pots, and all the pots are full of water, and in the sky there is the sun. So the one sun is reflected in the 10 pots. So it appears as 10 sun. And now he asks that how many reflections are there? And can you say, then Girish told that the sun is 1 and there are 10 reflections. And then Sri Ramakrishna just said that break one of the pot. Then how many reflections are there? 9. And sun, yes, of course sun is there. Sun and 9 reflections. So that way Sri Ramakrishna went on saying that you break another pot. At last there was only one pot. There is one pot and the sun. So how many reflection? Of course the sun is there and there is one reflection. And now you break that one pot too. So what's there? So Girish said only the sun. Sri Ramakrishna immediately said you cannot say that. Unless the reflection is there, not there, you don't know what it is. It is a reflection. Because of the reflection, that again the Tatastha Lakshana, that something has been reflected, you know. Unless there is no reflection, you can never know what it is. So that's the idea. It is beyond attributes, qualities and attributes. So whatever I am seeing in this world is nothing but the self. Self alone is the existent, asti, that is. When I am seeing the world of name and form. What is happening? I am projecting the attributes on that existence, which can never be known. That example which we give, the flower. When I speak of flower, what I say? It is red, it has such and such shape, it has a nice fragrance. If you touch, it is very soft. All these are attributes. From where it is coming? What is there I can never know. Just as we say, when the light falls on your retina, its function stops there. It gets converted into nerve currents. That it is a nerve current which is going to your brain. It is not the light. It is totally dark there. And when that nerve current reaches the so-called color center, the color is projected from there. It goes and envelops the flower to make you feel that it is red. So the red has been projected by the mind. How it has projected? By being activated by the self. The self is there behind the mind. It is a self which has become the mind, and then in coming association with the mind, it itself is projecting that redness. It is true with all the senses. Smell, touch, taste, everything, all this sound, all the senses which are having is the projection. So what I am seeing is nothing but the self coming in association with the mind is projecting itself through the senses to create this world of name and form. So what is there? Something is there. But I can never know it. That existence I can never deny. So that's the difference between Buddhism and in Vedanta. In Buddhism they will say it is subjective idealism. That nothing is there, everything is a projection of the mind. Vedanta will say easiness, that something is there, that asti I can never deny. Something is there which is being projected as something else because of the projection of the mind, and what I see is all those projections. They speak of the attributes, the qualities, but thing by itself can never be known. So that's the thing. You say whether when I'm trying to search the essence of me, the same thing applies there. It can never be known as such. And when I am trying to find the essence of anything in this world, again the same thing. The only thing I can say, something exists, asti, which is appearing as this world of name and form. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. This is wonderful. This Vedanta's ideas are, the more we dive deep into it, the more we will find that how deeply, how analytically these rishis have thought thousands of years back to really dive deep into the essence of the existence, that it is without qualities and attributes. So none can comprehend nor touch the Atman. When Sri Ramakrishna made Vidyasagar, very nice. Vidyasagar was the most scholarly person of those days, in the days of Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna is a literate person. When he met Vidyasagar, and in the conversation suddenly Ramakrishna told, everything has been defiled in this world. Only the self has not been defiled. It's very interesting that shop kichu eto hoye geche. That when I take food, when I'm taking food, so for you that food is defiled. That I have already taken that food, so it is defiled for you. So when I am seeing any object, my senses are defiling it, as if. So Sri Ramakrishna is saying a very interesting thing. Everything in this world is defiled. The moment you see it, it is defiled. But the self is the only thing which can never be defiled. Listening that, Vidyasagar was very much amazed. He told, I have read so many scriptures. I met so many scholars. I have never heard such a nice way of saying that everything has been defiled. The self has never been defiled. And that's the idea of this avang manasagocharam. That not this, one can neither comprehend nor touch the Atman. It is not defiled. It is without qualities or attributes. But according to the path of devotion, God has attributes. To a devotee, Krishna is spirit. His abode is spirit. And everything about him is spirit. So it's interesting. So that's why in Indian philosophy, the philosophy is actually, we say it darshana. Darshana is not philosophy. Darshana means perspective. The angle from which you are looking, the same building, when you look, you take a picture from the east, you take another picture from the west, you take another picture from the north, and take another picture from the south. The same building will appear different from which angle you are taking the picture. So darshana means perspective, from what angle you are just looking at it. Now in Bhakti Shastra, what they say? That just to let us try to understand, an iron bar is actually, it can become a magnet. Why it is not a magnet? Because all the dipoles are scattered. So the magnetic dipole of one, the magnetic effect of one of the dipole is negating the other. That speaks of balance, that speaks of zero. As we contemplated on Brahman, that's why our rishis discovered zero. That zero can be a number no one knew. It is not nothingness. It speaks of balance. When this entire creation is in a balanced state, The potentiality is there, but it is zero. Its effect is zero. So when it all takes, all the dipoles gets aligned in such a way that all the north poles in one direction and in the south poles are in one direction, then it becomes a magnet with a magnetic field. Now, the Vedantis, those are Advaita Vedantis, they will say that how that these dipoles got aligned and it became a magnet, we don't know. That is the Ajnana. And the Bhaktas will say the dipoles by itself cannot get aligned and suddenly iron bar cannot become a magnet. There must be someone who in one state is balanced, again in another state he is acting. In the words of Sri Ramakrishna, when the snake is not moving, it is coiled. It is the same snake when again it is moving around, curling in alone. So there must be a person whose is just as I know that I am consciousness, that consciousness is there, and again because of that consciousness I am moving around, walking, thinking, all the things I am doing. So these two aspects are in me, I feel. I am a person, his one thing is just pure consciousness, and because of that consciousness all the activities are possible. So now Bhakta will say that at last, that when you say only consciousness is there because of ignorance is appearing as the world, he will, alas, just as in the Bhagavad Gita, this have the idea of Purushottama. Purusha is there, this consciousness is there, and this, this lower Prakriti is there, higher Prakriti is the consciousness, lower Prakriti is this world, and beyond this, there is a Purushottam. The one, the same person who appears as, there is a potential form, inactive, again, the same person, because of that all the potentiality which manifests as all the actions as a Shakti in this world. So now, Bhakta will go that why, now for them the idea of ignorance is there, yes, for them also the idea of ignorance is there. That why God, who is ever fulfilled, who can always stay in that potential form, is a person, is becoming this world again. So that the concept of Leela comes. For the Bhakta, this is Leela. God just, as he is full of bliss, there's a small child. He will be unmaking so many things with the clay. You give him some synthetic clay, he will make a nice building, again he will break, again he will make some other thing. Why he is making and unmaking? Just, it is an expression of the joy within. He has no purpose. We are human beings, try to give purpose in everything. So that's, in Bhakti Shastra they say, it is the expression of God's bliss, that happiness. He is making, unmaking. No purpose is there. If some purpose is there, then he also becomes dependent. That he has some purpose, for that some fulfillment is required, so he has some limitations. He has to cross that limitation. So God becomes limited. So that's why very nicely they say that it is his Leela. It is his just expression of his, this joy, the bliss. And that's what is finding expression as the word. So he is with attributes. So it's just from what angle you are saying. It's the same thing. It's a different way of describing. Ultimately, you have to go beyond this world of phenomenon, whether you are a Bhakta or you are a Jnani. So that's a very nice thing. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, but for a devotee. So that's the very wonderful thing of Ramakrishna. He's accepting, as he has went through the spiritual journey, through all the paths, he's accepting everything. That yes, for the Jnani, that the self is beyond attributes. But for a Bhakta, the God has attributes. It is he who has become the world. Yet it is all those qualities were within him in potential form. That has finding manifested as the world. So it is he who is having all those attributes. To a devotee, Krishna is spirit, his abode is spirit, and everything about him is spirit. So that's the idea of Chinmaya Shyama, Chinmaya Dham. So he is consciousness and consciousness alone. That consciousness, after all, even in Vedanta we say that is appearing as the word. So it is the same consciousness which is appearing as the word. So the ultimate abode is just consciousness and consciousness alone. His abode is conscious. He himself is conscious. So that's this idea of his Chinmaya Shyama, Chinmaya Dhama. That's the devotee of Krishna is spirit. To a devotee, Krishna is spirit. His abode is spirit, and everything about him is spirit. So in the Vaishnava literature, Chinmaya Shyama and Chinmaya Dhama encapsulates the essence of Lord Krishna's transcendental form and the supreme eternal abode, which is free from all earthly contamination. That what's that? That when Krishna it is free from all the earthly contaminations. What the earthly contaminations are? The Shara Ripu, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. That the ultimate reality is beyond all those things. So he is beyond all the worldly contamination and all the deficiencies. What are the deficiencies? Jara, Vyadhi, Mrityu. That there is nothing in this world which doesn't go through this process of decay and death. So he is beyond that. So that's the ultimate reality which the Bhaktas speak of, and that's the world in which we all have to ascend, to be one with the divine. So these are the ideas which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating to the Marwari devotees. The Marwari devotees saluted the master and took their leave. At the approach of the evening, the master went out to look at the sacred river. The lamp was lighted in his room. The master chanted the hallowed name of the Divine Mother and meditated on her. Then the evening worship began in the various temples. The sound of gongs floating on the air mingled with the murmuring voice of the river. Peace and blessedness reigned everywhere. So these words are very important. It may appear to be as if of no use, but we read it because this gospel is meant for contemplation. That when we are reading, we have to feel, I am in Dakshineshwar, I am in presence of the master. And there, the entire scenario is being reproduced, as in the gospel can be reproduced in our mind. And when we can reproduce it, that thing which you are reproducing in your mind is something Chinmaya. No one can contaminate it. Whenever you want, you are there. You are in Dakshineshwar, which is Chinmaya. You are with Ramakrishna, which is Chinmaya. That's the idea of Chinmaya Shyama, Chinmaya Dhyama. So that's why all these descriptions are important. When you are reading, you feel the presence of the divine. For us, those who are novice in our spiritual journey, just to say contemplate of the divine, it becomes very challenging, difficult. The mind is always jumping. It is jumping from one idea to another idea. So why not create a sequence of ideas which are all related with the divine? And that's the idea of the Leela. That Sri Ramakrishna is in Dakshineshwar, he is praying, the conch bells are ringing. Just see, you can just create the entire scenario in his mind and you can be in the presence of the divine. And that way, the mind do get a certain level in which it can remain fixed. Otherwise, what happens? I try to fix the idea on the divine, which is very abstract. Maybe it is possible for me for some time, and then when I come down, there is no level in which can help me to just continue there. I just again fall back to my day-to-day mundane affairs. So that's why all those other thoughts are also very helpful. They help us to keep the mind at certain level, even if it is not possible to keep it at just the highest level. You come down a little and just you delve, you immerse in his Leela, read books, and try to have these varied spiritual ideas that keeps your mind at certain level. It doesn't take you just down again to the mundane level. So that way, the Mahendra, our master Mahashaya, wrote the gospel in such a way. He's as if reproducing the thing which has happened in Dakshineshwar. Everywhere we'll find the entire scenario has been reproduced as if through his words. That gives the beauty of the gospel, and it helps us to contemplate as if I am in Dakshineshwar, in the presence of the master, and I can just reproduce the entire scenario where it is not that I am the third person. I am someone who is in direct communion with the divine, with Sri Ramakrishna. So now we will go to the next chapter, the 8th chapter, the Master's birthday celebration at Dakshineshwar. Sunday, February 18, 1883. Sri Ramakrishna arrived at Govinda Mukherjee's house at Belghoria, near Calcutta. Besides Narendra, Ram and other devotees, some of Govinda's neighbors were present. The master first sang and danced with the devotees. After the kirtan, they sat down. Many saluted the master. Now and then he would say, bow before God. So Now now the master's conversation starts. What he said? It is God alone who has become all this. But in certain places, for instance, in a holy man, there is a greater manifestation than in others. You may say, there are wicked men also. That is true, even as there are tigers and lions, but one need not hug the tiger god. One should keep away from him and salute him from a distance. Take water, for instance. Some water may be drunk, some may be used for worship, some for bathing, and some only for washing dishes. So what it speaks of? It speaks, let us break it down. The first, yes, the entire phenomenal existence, the entire world, the entire universe is nothing but the manifestation of the divine. That's the first thing. It has been spoken of in the very first verse of the Isha Upanishad. Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat. So this entire universe is pervaded by the divine. But when it is manifesting as the universe, there are the question of gradation. There's a varying degree of manifestation. Just to give a common example, the white light, when it falls on the prism, on one side of the prism, it's white light. There is no variation, no gradation. But the moment it falls on the prism, on the other side, we find it has formed a spectrum, the 7 colors. The gradations are there. The Vibgyor has formed. Not only Vibgyor, there are something ultraviolet spectrum which I cannot see. There are infrared spectrum which I cannot see. I can see only the Vibgyor. And that also there is a gradation. What it speaks, the ultimate reality which is beyond all gradations, hierarchy. It appears to be graded, that's manifested in various levels. One, it finds expression through this mind and the senses. So there's a various gradation. And once there is gradation, I have to be cautious in my spiritual journey. I know everything is divine, but I cannot intermingle with the evil. I have to just be in association with something which is good, which will help me to again realize the real essence of my being. So that's Sri Ramakrishna's gospel, that stories are important. In some other context, the stories, they are a wonderful story. The Hathi Narayan, Mahut Narayan, that speaks of this same idea. That once, that in the forest, the various brahmacharis from a particular ashram, they were all collecting the firewood needed for cooking or the sacrifice they have in the ashram. They were collecting the firewood, and suddenly they heard someone was shouting, "Please run away, run away. The elephant has got mad." Actually, the Mahut, the one who was riding on the elephant, the Mahut, he lost control over the elephant because the elephant has got mad. So naturally he was shouting, if anyone comes on the way, the elephant will simply kick it or it will thrash it. So just to warn them, he was shouting at the top of his voice, "Please run away from the way, the elephant has got mad." Now all the brahmacharis started running so that they can be safe. But one of the brahmacharis thought that my guru in the ashram, my guru always instructs, always says that everything is God. If everything is God, then why should I be afraid of this elephant? It is also God. So all ran. This one brahmachari, he was standing patiently on the way on which that elephant was coming. From a distance he saw the elephant is coming. He stood there with his hands, there's folded hands. He was just waiting there to bow down to that elephant. And when the elephant came near, it simply took it on its trunk and threw it at a distance. And the elephant went on its own way. Now other brahmacharis noticed what has happened from a distance. Then when the elephant left, they came running to see the condition of this brahmachari. What has happened? He was badly injured. And they found he hasn't died, but he has lost his sense. He was senseless. So they somehow carried him to the ashrama and just gave him some water. The guru was also there near this brahmachari, and all were tending on him. They were just sprinkling water. And then he got back to his senses at last. And now the Guru asked, what happened? Why didn't you run? All the brahmacharis ran on hearing that the elephant is mad, and all ran. You never ran. And then this disciple told, you only told that a God is everywhere. So I was waiting there to offer my obeisance, my pranams, my respect to the elephant God. And the Guru immediately told, very nice, that it's okay that you were offering your respect to the elephant God, but why didn't you hear, why did you disobey the Mahut Narayan, the Hathi Narayan, this Narayan in the form of elephant? You were there to eager to show him respect, but the one who was sitting on the top, the Mahut, he was shouting, move away from the way. In your endeavor to show respect to the elephant, you disobeyed him. Why didn't you show respect to him? So here this speaks of the manifestation. Taratama. Mahut Narayan is the Guru. Hathi Narayan is this mad world. So if I have to hear the words of the Guru. So there comes the question of that as per the manifestation, I have to be. I know everything is God. But now for my own spiritual welfare, for my welfare, I have to, as per the gradation, I have to be in association with someone which is holy and not in association with others which is unholy. Well, these ideas are very subtle. Generally what happens, the thing which is unholy we hate. The scripture says don't hate, be indifferent. That is also God. Don't hate. Why? Because hatred is negative attraction. The thing which you hate, you will find you think of it more intently than the thing you love. You will be thinking more intently of your enemy than of your own loved ones. The hatred is very intense. And the thing which you think, that's what you are contemplating. If you are hating some evil, you are contemplating on evil. Constantly you are thinking of that. And that tarnishes your mind. So be indifferent. Don't hate. As there's a wonderful story that the two, the gatekeepers of Narayan, of Vishnu, they didn't allow the four Kumaras, they couldn't realize who were there, to meet Vishnu. And these four Kumaras were very powerful. Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandan and Sanat Kumar. They immediately cursed because they were so much eager to meet Vishnu, and these two guards were not allowing. And immediately they cursed that you will fall from this Vishnu Loka. You will have to be born as a human being again and again. So they were cursed. And now Vishnu came and he realized who they were, the four Kumaras. He bowed down to them in respect because they were the Nitya Siddhas, always liberated. They never, when Brahma created the universe, at the first attempt, he somehow forgot to delude them. They immediately, they realized, these four Kumaras realized that this world is a mere projection. So they never got bound. So these were the four ones who were ever mukta. After going through that mistake, even Brahma committed that mistake. After that he created again this creation where we are within the matrix. So we can never realize that it is a projection because we are part of it. So but his first creation was his four Kumaras. And they were highly evolved soul. When they came, now Vishnu realized who they were. He showed them respect and then he came to know what has happened. And he told his two guards were very, very devoted to Vishnu. But Vishnu told, see, you have annoyed these four Kumaras. Even their curse I cannot simply negate them. You have to be born. As they told, you have to be born again and again, you have to be born again and again. But I can somehow reduce your suffering. How? By giving you a choice. If you are born as my devotee, you have to take 7 births. But if you are born as my enemy, only 3 births. And that's how the story goes. That first birth, they were born as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and then as Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and then as Shishupala and Karna, most probably. Kanksha. So these, in 3 avatars, these 2 brothers were the enemies that way. But what the story, why we are saying this story? See, if you are a devotee, then 7 births. But if you are enemy, only 3 births. And what speaks of? hatred is very intense. That what you hate, that you think more intently than the thing which you love. So that way, hatred is not the opposite of love. Opposite of love is indifference. Because hatred is a negative attraction. The thing which you hate, you constantly think of that. Be indifferent. When I'm passing through the road, someone crosses me. I don't know him. I neither love him, I neither hate him. I'm indifferent. So that's the idea. So many ideas are actually hidden there in this idea. That when you see this creation, these various manifestations are there. So I cannot be in association with all. I of course have to be in association with something good. But the bad things I shouldn't hate. Be indifferent towards them. And that's how I can be indifferent towards them? By knowing very well, after all, it is the divine which is finding manifestation that way. So how can I hate? It is after all the God. The God, He is appearing as the sinner. So now, when I know everything is God, the question of hating doesn't come. He is appearing that way, so I am not supposed to intermingle with Him. I do respect Him, but I am not going to, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that I am also afraid of these three people. One of them is the drunkard, another is the mad person, and third I am forgetting. When I see them, I always try to cajole them. Because if I just somehow try to get rid of them, they will start shouting and they will just unnecessarily create a disturbance. So I cajole them and try to get rid of them. Oh yeah, and the mad bull, Shard, a mad person, and a drunkard. These three, somehow you have to cajole them so that they don't disturb you. What's the idea? That again, is manifesting everything the divine which is manifesting as the world. But when you are dealing with them, you have to be very, very cautious. Don't hate anything. The thing which is good, you of course adore that, love that, but don't hate the thing which is not that good, because that also is the manifestation of the divine. So this all ideas are being actually been spoken of by Sri Ramakrishna in these words. That it is God alone who has become all this. But in certain places, for instance, in a holy man, there is a greater manifestation than in others. You may say there are wicked men also. That is true, even as there are tigers and lions. But one did not hug the tiger god. One should keep away from him and salute him. Not hate him, salute him from a distance. Take water, for instance. Some water may be drunk, some may be used for worship, some for bathing, and some only for washing dishes. So that's how this is speaking of the gradation. That you cannot use all the waters for all the purpose. As per the purity of the water, you can use it in varied degrees. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. That though everything is a manifestation of divine, but there is a varying degree of manifestation. So you have to deal with the wickedness with indifference, and you have to be in association with the good so that you evolve spiritually. Overall, so that's the statement emphasizes the omnipresence of the divine and the need for discernment in dealing with the various aspects of existence. So that's the thing which is spoken of here. So then a neighbor asked, Revered Sir, what are the doctrines of Vedanta? Sri Ramakrishna. The Vedantist says, I am He. Brahman is real and the world illusory. Even the I is illusory. Only the Supreme Brahman exists. See here, even the I is illusory. That someone is hallucinating. The I, which I am hallucinating, which the Buddhists say that is a hallucination. Even we also say it's hallucination. But someone is hallucinating. That's the idea here. Even the I is illusory. Only the Supreme Brahman exists. But the I cannot be got rid of. Therefore, it is good to have the feeling, I am the servant of God, His son, His devotee. For the Kali Yuga, the path of bhakti is specially good. One can realize God through bhakti too. As long as one is conscious of the body, one is also conscious of objects. From form, taste, smell, sound and touch. These are the objects. It is extremely difficult to get rid of the consciousness of objects. And one cannot realize I am He as long as one is aware of the objects. The sannyasi is very little conscious of worldly objects, but the householder is always engrossed in them. Therefore, it is good for him to feel, I am the servant of God. These words of masters appear so simple, but so much of our philosophy is all encapsulated in those few words. In Vedanta, there are three vadas to speak of the ultimate reality. Mainly, there are so many vadas. One is called Srishti Drishti Vada. The second one is called Ajata Vada. And the third one is called Drishti Srishti Vada. Very interesting. Srishti Drishti. That as we all feel, the creation has happened. And I am looking at the creation. With this idea, if you try to find the ultimate reality, at last it will be dualistic. As we all think, the creation is there outside. I am seeing the creation. So first comes Srishti, then Drishti. What it is very interesting, that if you take the credentiality of your senses as true, that the world is there, I am seeing it, and then you try to find out the ultimate reality. So there, even in modern science, there is something called anthropic principle, that I am here sitting today was planned at the time of Big Bang. So they will say that everything is planned. How? Very interesting. They say everything has happened so accurately, so many accidents, one after the other. In exact precision it has happened to make my existence in this moment possible. Just in the pure science, if you take the Big Bang, it happened with a particular force. If that force was a bit more, the creation wouldn't have been possible. Everything would have scattered. Just say, when you throw something on the space, if the velocity is beyond the escape velocity, it won't come back. It will just go in the space, scattered. And if that force is not too much, the gravitation will pull it down. So now, when the creation, the Big Bang happened, the force was very, very precise. If it was a bit more than with which it has happened, the creation wouldn't have been possible. Galaxies wouldn't have been formed. Everything would have been scattered. If it was a bit less, a huge black hole will have been formed. Everything will come back, collapse, a black hole will form. In a very simple way, we are just trying to say. It happened in a force which made this creation possible. So you may say that's an accident. Accidentally, somehow, that's the force in which this has happened. And very thing that the matter came into existence only after the Big Bang, not before the Big Bang. So what exploded? It's not matter. Very interesting how that Big Bang has happened, that in modern science they have discovered that it has happened. There are two scientists, one of them is Penzias. They thought that they got, when there was in the Hubble telescope, when there was it was not focused as such, they were getting some radiations. They thought most probably it's not properly clean. Some bird droppings are on there. It has some temperature, and that temperature is being recorded as some variations. They went and cleaned it. They saw nothing, but still that variations was there. And just in the TV, when you are not tuned to a particular channel, you see some that noise. So this they got the Nobel Prize for that. This Penzias and the other scientists I forgot. They say that even without tuning it for observing any particular object, when you get this radiation, that radiation actually speaks of the remnant of the Big Bang. It's a remnant. Just give a common example. When you ring a bell, suppose a gong you ring, that sound gradually will be traversing, and it will become very feeble and feeble. At last it will go beyond our audible level, but it is still there. It's not lost. It is still there. The Big Bang happened with a huge force, that the remnant of it is still there. With a normal ear we cannot hear it, but it is there. With a sophisticated instrument you can find it, and that wave speaks of the remnant of that Big Bang happened. That's the remnant. And very interesting, in our scriptures they say you don't need any instrument. A yogi can hear that sound. And what's that sound? Very nice. They call it anahata dhvani. Very interesting. These terms itself are very interesting. Anahata. Now to create any sound, there should be collision of two matters. Otherwise no sound can be produced. You clap your hands. So this matter is colliding. Before the Big Bang, there was no matter. What collided? Anahata. Anahata, there's a sound, dhvani, which has been produced without collision. Anahata. There's words. That's why we say that if you study this, our scriptures, even the word, the philosophy is hidden in those words. That the word anahata is something very interesting. A sound has been created without any collision. Anahata. So that's the dhani. So Big Bang happened, we may say it's an accident. It happened at a force. Now you come to the formation of atoms. Now there are 4 forces in nature. This gravitational, till now they have found only 4. Gravitational force, electromagnetic force, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force. Now the ratio, I am not going to the details, just to say this ratio of the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force is such that if that ratio was not there, atoms wouldn't have been formed at all. Again, another accident. Big Bang, after that is the formation of the atoms, this so-called the matter. For that, again, another accident is the ratio of that strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force is such that enabled in the formation of matter. Like that, thousands of such accidents, everything happened in sequence. How can accidents are a singular event? How can so many accidents have happened in sequence? Come down to the earth. The sun's radiation is falling on the earth. We say the earth the pole is tilted at 23.5 degrees. If it was a bit more straight, more perpendicular, the sun rays would have fallen on the earth perpendicularly, more straight, and the heat would have been so much, life wouldn't have been possible. If it was a bit more oblique, the temperature will be so less, again, life is not possible. The earth's gravitation is such which enables the oxygen to be in the atmosphere. Otherwise, if it was too, heavy, only the light gases like hydrogen and helium would have been there. So, if it is too, the gravitation force is too strong, the heavier gases also will be hold. Life won't be possible. If it is too less, only hydrogen and helium will be there. Life is not possible. The gravitation is such which allows the oxygen to be in the atmosphere, which makes life possible. Even in our body, that we are always complaining about disease, but we forget that I take a deep breath in, I breathe out. That is a miracle. Why? Buddhists, those who don't believe in God, they meditate on that. It's a miracle. Why? So many things within our body. The exact amount of hormones, enzymes, the heartbeat, it's happening exactly, precisely in that same quantity which is quantified by our medical science. It's happening. A bit more, high blood pressure, a bit less, low blood pressure, more sugar, low. So to be in the balance is a miracle. So many, hundreds of factors within the body have to come together to really make it possible. So you will find thousands of such accidents have coincided to make at last the life possible. So I take the creation as real. I am sitting here seeing the creation. At last I can, with full amazement, come to that realization that there must be a larger force, whether I call it God or whatever because when accidents are happening in sequence, it speaks of a plan, a design. If it was all the sequence was not, so many sequence was not there, it would have been just a simple, like cloud, some formation, some patterns have been formed, but it doesn't speak of design. Here we find a design which somehow gives the idea that there must be a designer behind the design. So as long as we are within the mind and senses, at last we can end up in duality where God is, I am. He is something. That word God sometimes create a lot of misconceptions. There is a higher power, let us say. Forget the word God. There's a higher power, I cannot define it, and I am just an insignificant being. I am just here something because of that higher power that has resulted in my life. So this results in duality. So it is possible for everyone to believe in that duality. But non-duality is something very difficult. Why? You have to go beyond your thoughts and senses to a realization where you find that ajata, that we will continue with this discussion again in the next class, that the creation is actually not there. Because of the mind and the senses, the creation is happening each and every moment. But actually there is no creation. To be an Advaitin, you have to go to a particular altered state of consciousness to realize that. But Dvaita is easy. In this world at present, with all our activities, to believe in Advaita is very difficult. It is mere words which has no realization behind it. But Dvaita, I have a realization. I can somehow realize that there must be some a greater being who has planned the universe. To a certain extent you can go there. But non-duality do require a type of preparation. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna saying in this Kali Yuga, as we have no time, so bhakti can be very easy path. So that's what is indicating. But these discussions are very, very interesting. We will go to the three Vadas in the details again in the next class to understand what Sri Ramakrishna is saying in this paragraph. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.